Hello, and welcome to Spotlight on Asian Pacific Americans. Today, we will be exploring the life and legacy of Duke Kahanamoku, Native Hawaiian competition swimmer who popularized the ancient Hawaiian sport of surfing. Duke Kahanamoku lived from 1890 to 1968. He was an American and Native Hawaiian competition swimmer and surfer. Duke was a 5-time Olympic medalist in swimming. During his lifetime, he was also an actor, beach volleyball player, and a law enforcement officer. Before we get started, let's talk a little bit about the Asia-Pacific region. Asia is the largest continent of our planet, both in size and in population. More than 4.6 billion people live on the continent of Asia that includes 48 countries. An Asian Pacific American is an American that is of Asian or Pacific Islander descent. People may choose to use this term to identify themselves, but not every Asian American does. According to the 2019 Census Population Estimate, there are 18.9 million Asian Americans living in the United States. Asian Americans account for 5.7% of the nation's population. Duke Kahanamoku was a Pacific Islander from what is now the state of Hawaii. People who are descended from any of the original peoples of Hawaii, Guam, Samoa, or other Pacific Islands are referred to as Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. Hawaii is a string of islands in the Pacific Ocean. It is almost as far from California as New York is. So how did these tropical islands become one of the 50 United States of America? The first people who settled around 400 CE in the Hawaiian Islands traveled more than 2,000 miles by canoe from other islands in the Pacific. They developed a language and culture, and for fun, they surfed. In 1810, King Kamehameha united the small, independent islands and established the Hawaiian monarchy. He is still celebrated every year on Kamehameha Day. When the king died in 1819, everything changed. People came from other parts of the world, bringing their religion, languages, cultures, and germs. Tens of thousands of Hawaiians died from American and European diseases. Queen Liliuokalani, the last Hawaiian ruler, fought to preserve Hawaiian independence, but was overpowered by companies and businesses coming to the islands. She was dethroned in 1893 and spent the rest of her life writing songs and poems about her home, including Aloha Oe, Hawaii's signature song. Hawaii eventually became a state in 1959. The citizens of Hawaii make every effort to preserve the Hawaiian culture today. Now let's learn more about Duke by reading the story by Lori Kalkoven and illustrated by Steve Lewis. We have permission from Simon & Schuster for this reading. Introduction. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live right next to the ocean? To ride ocean waves on a surfboard? Or to bring home an Olympic gold medal or several gold medals? If so, then you should meet Duke Kahanamoku. Duke grew up on the beach in Hawaii. The ocean was his playground. He took part in 4 Olympics and created world swimming records. Then he showed the world how to surf ocean waves as tall as skyscrapers. Duke brought aloha, or love, peace, and kindness to the world. Once you meet him, you'll be inspired to do the same. Chapter 1. Growing Up on the Beach. Duke Kahanamoku was born in Hawaii on August 24, 1890. His father was a police officer, and his mother was active in the community. Duke was their first child. Eventually, he would have 8 siblings. Hawaii wasn't the popular vacation spot that it is now. There were no big hotels, just the ocean and beautiful beaches. When he was 4, Duke's father and uncle taught him to swim the Hawaiian way. They threw him over the side of a canoe, ready to jump in right away if he needed them. Duke didn't. He swam. As a boy, Duke spent most of his time at the beach. He swam, paddled canoes, and took part in an ancient Hawaiian sport, surfing. Duke, like other Hawaiians, called it wave riding. He also sold newspapers, delivered ice, and showed tourists around to earn money for his family. Other days, he went fishing to provide food. In school, he played sports like football and soccer, but in his mind, nothing could compete with surfing and swimming. Duke was such a good swimmer that when the Amateur Athletic Union, AAU, had a race in Hawaii in 1911, he entered. The AAU is one of the largest nonprofit volunteer sports organizations in the United States. The AAU is dedicated to the development of amateur sports and physical fitness programs. Hawaii didn't have any Olympic-sized swimming pools, so they held the race in Honolulu Harbor. Duke smashed the world record for the 100-yard freestyle race by more than 4 seconds. Then he broke the American 50-yard freestyle record by more than a second. A second may not seem like much to you, but 1 second is an extremely long and important amount of time in Olympic sports. A person can win a gold medal at the Olympics by beating their opponent by only 1/10 of a second. It was time for the world to learn the name of this Hawaiian swimmer. Chapter 2, Olympic Dreams. The AAU didn't believe that a surfer they had never heard of could swim that fast. They said that officials must have timed the race incorrectly by using alarm clocks instead of stopwatches. They hadn't. Then the AAU decided the ocean currents helped Duke. He didn't get credit for breaking the records. Duke's friends knew that he was the best swimmer in the world. They took up a collection to send him to the mainland to try out for the Olympics. Duke boarded a ship to California. Then he rode trains across the country. He saw snow for the first time in the Rocky Mountains. In Chicago in February, he had to buy warm clothes and a coat. He also swam in a pool for the first time. At first, Duke didn't like swimming in pools. The water was colder than Hawaii's tropical waters. He also had never learned how to turn when he hit a wall to swim laps and finish a race. But Duke didn't give up. Coaches helped him, and he began to win races. Soon, he had a spot on the 1912 United States Olympic team. He was going to Sweden. On June 14, 1912, the SS Finland set sail for Sweden with the Olympic team on board. Every ship, ferry, and tugboat in the New York harbor blew their foghorns at full blast to cheer on the athletes. On the ship, Duke made many friends. He had his ukulele with him, and at night he played and sang Hawaiian songs. He trained the best he could in the ship's small canvas swimming tanks. In Sweden, Duke became a sensation for his fast swimming, but he almost missed an important race. Duke's family always teased him because he could sleep anywhere, anytime. That was true even at the Olympics. When it was time for the 100-meter finals, Duke was nowhere to be found. His teammates rushed around searching for him. Finally, they found him taking a nap under a bridge. When they woke him up, he apologized and then went on to win the race. Duke went on to win the final race too. He matched the world record on top of winning the gold medal. Later that week, Duke participated in the 4x200-meter relay, and the U.S. team won the silver medal. He became one of the most famous swimmers in the world. Chapter 3, The Human Fish. After the Olympics, everyone wanted to know more about the man nicknamed the Human Fish. For the next few months, Duke traveled around the United States, giving swimming demonstrations. He also surfed. Surfing was known in California and Hawaii, but most people on the East Coast had never seen it done. That is, until Duke visited Atlantic City. He took to the waves, riding his board backwards, standing on his head, and even carrying a boy on his shoulders. People went crazy for surfing and for Duke. It wasn't until October 1912 that Duke was able to make his way back to Hawaii. Duke waved his hat from the ship's deck, then he dipped 2 fingers and raised them to his mouth. He wanted to let the crowd know that he couldn't wait to eat his favorite Hawaiian food again, poi. Poi is a Hawaiian food made from taro root that is cooked, pounded, and molded into paste. It is served in small bowls, and Hawaiians eat it by dipping 2 fingers in the bowl. Duke's welcome home party lasted an entire week. Hawaii's most famous citizen settled back into day-to-day life. He kept swimming and surfing. When World War I broke out in Europe in 1914, Duke raised money for the Red Cross and taught people about water safety and life saving. Then he traveled to Australia. People wanted to see him swim, but one look at the ocean reminded Duke of his happy days surfing in Hawaii. He wanted to surf again. He made his own surfboard and took to the waters outside of Sydney. Once again, he was a surfing sensation. Before he left, he showed the Australians how to make surfboards. Pretty soon, surfing was one of Australia's most popular sports. Surfing became even more popular at home when Duke rode a wave in 1917 that surfers still talk about today. The massive waves that day may have been caused by an earthquake in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Duke only knew that the waves off the coast of Waikiki in Hawaii were the largest he'd ever seen. He paddled far out into the water and waited for the tallest, fastest wave of them all. When it came, Duke paddled hard. At the right time, he stood on his board. Then Duke rode that fast wave for more than a mile. "I never caught another wave anything like that one," he later said. "It is a golden one that I treasure." Duke hoped that surfing would become an Olympic sport. It never did, so he continued to compete as a swimmer. The 1916 Olympics were canceled because of World War I. Duke swam for the 1920 United States Olympic team in Antwerp, Belgium, and won gold in the 100-meter freestyle on his 30th birthday. He also broke his own world record. Then he won the gold as part of the 4x200 freestyle relay team. In the 1924 Olympics in Paris, France, 8 swimmers from around the world were in the 100-meter freestyle final. American swimmer Johnny Westmuller found himself between Duke on one side and Duke's younger brother Sam on the other. Duke wished both Johnny and Sam luck. "The most important thing in this race is to get the American flag up there 3 times, he said. "Let's do it." The starting gun went off, and the swimmers dove into the pool. Johnny took the gold, Duke won the silver, and Sam won the bronze medal. A bad case of the flu kept Duke from training for the 1928 Olympics. He didn't qualify for the team. He returned to the Olympics in Los Angeles, California in 1932. As an alternate with the water polo team. Altogether, he took part in 4 Olympics. By the time Duke's Olympic career was over in 1932, he had won 3 gold medals and 2 silver. Duke also gained fame for other reasons. In between the Olympic Games, he acted in more than 24 Hollywood movies. Because of the color of his skin, Duke was only hired for small parts like pirates, servants, and Native American chiefs. When restaurants refused to serve him, Duke knew he was being treated unfairly, but he was a peaceful person and kept quiet. But he always knew in his heart these people were wrong to judge him by the color of his skin. On June 14, 1925, Duke became a hero for another reason. He was relaxing on the beach in California with a couple of friends. They saw a fishing boat, the Thelma, in trouble off the coast. A storm had come up suddenly, and the boat was struggling in massive waves. The boat capsized. All the fishermen on board fell into the ocean. Duke didn't think twice. He grabbed his surfboard and dove into the pounding waves. "I paddled until my arms begged for mercy," he later said. Duke grabbed 3 men, pulled them onto his surfboard, and raced back to shore. Then he turned around and did it again and again. He would have gone back a 4th time, but by then it was too late. A few of the men had already drowned. Duke saved 8 fishermen that day. His friends saved another 4. But Duke didn't feel like the hero the world said he was. He was sad that some men had died before he got to them. Today, largely because of Duke's actions, lifeguards have rescue boards. At the time, the police chief said that Duke's actions were the most superhuman rescue act and the finest display of surfboard riding that has ever been seen in the world. Chapter 5. The Ambassador of Aloha. Hawaii was always Duke's favorite place to be. When his Olympic career was over, he left Hollywood to settle down at home. He took different jobs and spent as much time on the beach as he could. Then he ran for sheriff of Honolulu and won. He also fell in love and got married at the age of 50. He and his wife had no children. Duke was sheriff from 1934 to 1961. After Hawaii became a state in 1959, he became Hawaii's ambassador of Aloha. he welcomed guests to the islands and surfed. Duke welcomed athletes like Babe Ruth and world figures like England's Queen Mother to Hawaii. Duke taught the Queen Mother how to do the hula. Even President John F. Kennedy wanted to meet the human fish. Duke continued to be Hawaii's most famous citizen until Barack Obama was elected president in 2008. Called the father of modern surfing, Duke won many honors. You can find Duke's name in the U.S. Olympic Hall of Fame. In 1999, Surfer magazine named him the Surfer of the Century. He even got his own postage stamp from the United States Postal Service. You'll find statues of Duke on Freshwater Beach in Australia and on the beach at Waikiki, Hawaii. But what mattered most to Duke was bringing surfing and the spirit of Hawaii to the rest of the world. When Duke was a boy, only a few native Hawaiians still surfed. Thanks in large part to him, today surfing is a pastime enjoyed by people all over the world. It's an important part of the legacy of the Hawaiian people, a favorite sport and a tool used by lifeguards to save lives. This is an illustration of Duke's statue on the beach at Waikiki in Hawaii. People like to leave flower necklaces, called leis, on its arm as a tribute to Duke. I hope you enjoyed this story and were able to learn a little more about Duke. Now let's take a look at the activity sheet in front of you. It's okay if you don't have it, just follow along on the screen. We are going to go through all the different ways that Duke showed us that he was a global citizen. As stated earlier, you may follow along or take notes on your activity sheet as we go through how he was able to investigate the world, recognize perspectives, communicate ideas, and take action. Let's talk about how Duke took opportunities to investigate the world. Do you remember how he traveled to places all around the globe when he was competing in the Olympics? He met people from everywhere and was able to travel and adjust to new environments. He was also able to share his love of surfing and swimming with the people around him. How about recognizing perspectives? At first, Duke didn't like swimming in pools. The water was colder than Hawaii's tropical waters. He also had never learned how to turn when he hit a wall to swim laps and finish a race. But Duke didn't give up. Coaches helped him, and he began to win races. When it came time to communicate ideas, Duke was a pro. He made his own surfboard and took to the waters outside of Sydney. Once again, he was a surfing sensation. Before he left, he showed the Australians how to make surfboards. Pretty soon, surfing was one of Australia's most popular sports. Finally, there were many ways that Duke took action to help others. One was when he saw a boat capsize. Duke didn't think twice. He grabbed his surfboard and dove into the waves, eventually saving 8 people. Another time he took action was when he ran for sheriff and became Hawaii's ambassador of aloha, welcoming and greeting guests from all over the world. Duke was instrumental in not only spreading the sport of surfing around the world, but was an ambassador of goodwill and the spirit of aloha. His surfing techniques always displayed not only humility, but humor as well. He possessed a generous and heroic spirit in everything he did. What earned him his beloved reputation as a surfing hero was his ability to overcome personal hardship and continue to live and inspire others. Mahalo, or thank you for joining us today as we explored the life and work of inspiring Asian Pacific American Duke Kahanamoku. Please join us next time as we explore the life and work of Ruth Asawa, Japanese-American sculptor recognized for her wire sculptures, public commissions, and her activism in education. Thank you for joining us today for Spotlight on Asian Pacific Americans, and we will see you next time.